Hello everyone, this is a short a video about a few books that I will either be reading for Historathon 2026 and or possible side quests, as it says. But the first book is this thing, which is Pliny's Natural History, books 1 and 2. And this is a kind of a... from the Loeb. It's basically exactly like the Loeb Classic. What do they call it? The Loeb Classical Library. But published in the UK. So, via Harvard University Press by William Heinemann. And this one is from 1938. So that was in my local county library. And I'd never handled one of these Loeb books, and of course they are famously Latin on that side of the page, and in this case English on that side of the page. And that's how it is. That's how the book is. So I had a look at that, and pretty interesting, up to a point. But definitely something written of its time, at the time, is clearly kind of next to mind-blowing kind of thing, So, that one's going back tomorrow, probably. So there's another book I wanted to talk about as well. This is a follow-up to an earlier video I did on Miss Edie Weaving's Essential Druidry. This is a glare on a front cover, isn't it? I think there we are. Living Druidry, magical spirituality for the wild soul. And I'm going to talk about that maybe at the end. But first of all, my main books because I decided not to do a pile of possibilities video generally because, well, there are plenty of them, and I'm going to do them kind of month by month, so that I don't, get a stack of books that I'm thinking, hey, I want to read all that. I want to read all of them, and I'm not going to read all of them. So to start, I'm going to try and read some more of this. I did start this about kind of 70, 80 pages in last year. I tend to do this sometimes. I'm sort of kind of, the other book I want to look at is this one, The Greek Myths, and this is by Robin Waterfield, who many of you will know. There are other books that I can that I've got knocking around that I'm sort of thinking, well, maybe, but focusing on really getting as much as I can out of these two books. The sort of the side quests that sort of kind of ancillary, or is to continue like I did last year. I read about 60 pages of this, Nicomachean and Ethics by Aristotle, and so there's that, and then there's the Epictetus from the Chicago University Press. And I've kind of read again, I don't know, 70 pages of that. And so there we are. You see, that's the pattern. I'm one of these guys who read something, and I get to a certain point. I think, that's brilliant. That's really interesting. And there's 300 pages to go, and there's this other stuff that's kind of really interesting. So I kind of start something else. So literally, I've got kind of, I picked out a third book that I thought was my kind of TBR for January, and or sort of a pile of possibilities possible, is The Great Sea by Abulafia from Cambridge University. I think this is the one that won him a prize, not The Boundless Sea, or is it the other way around? I have both. No, The Boundless Sea was the winner of the Wolfson Prize. So I got it kind of planned for another time. And the Boundless Sea, no, the Great Sea. Again, on page 37 for that one. I started that as well last year. So I got 5 books that I've already started. But anyway, I thought the Great Sea, a human history of the Mediterranean, would be a nice accompaniment to all these other things. To add to last year's reading and the like, where you can, if you check back on my back catalogue, as it were, you'll probably see some videos about some of those kinds of books that were, I was reading for January last year and possibly the year before. But anyway, about the Burqa, published in German. I mean, the guy's a German, and it was first published in 1977, and it received its English translation in 1985. It's quite academic. In short, it's quite academic. You need to be reasonably proficient at kind of comprehension, if I can put that into and out of the classroom. Yeah, it's, I don't know whether people would call it a little dry. It's kind of academically informative and requires a little engagement with it. And it doesn't just sort of kind of flow like a nice kind of stream off the page, as it were. But otherwise, hopefully, it is an amazingly kind of, the whole world of Greek religion is brought to light, as you'd expect. Whoops. And it is, it carries some tremendous fundamentals, and yeah, it needs that engagement to really try and make sense of what's happening. I mean, yeah, the details of certain rituals. I mean, to give you an idea, it's divided up into 7 sections, and they include prehistory, ritual and sanctuary, the gods, the dead heroes and the chthonic gods, polis and polytheism, mysteries and asceticism, and philosophical religion. Thus, so we got pages of stuff about the altar, for example, a little subsection, the altar, temple and cult image, priests, the festival, dancing and hymns, etc. So there's lots of detail that needs to be sort of brought together, and it's that kind of book. It's almost like a textbook, but it can be read, I think, from cover to cover, and is very good in a way. Or perhaps to give you an example, or a bit of an idea of how it reads. This is from Animal and God. Evolutionary theories found in animal worship. Whoops, I read that wrong. Evolutionary theories found in animal worship are very attractive, more primitive antecedent to the belief in anthropomorphic gods. Further support for this view came from the discovery about the turn of the century of a half-understood totemism, which was seen as an original form of religion as such. It was not surprising, therefore, that animals worshipped as gods, animal gods, and totem animals were sought and found behind the gods of the Greeks. Where this means that the god is identical with his victim, then the god himself is sacrificed and eaten. The explosive power of these reflections derived not least from their contiguity with the Christian theology of the sacrifice in the Mass. Yeah, and literally over the page. It's worth hearing this, I think. This is from Gift Offerings and Libation, and this is 2.1, First Fruit Offerings. In human society, the exchange of gifts is a social process of the first order. Through giving and receiving, personal bonds are forged and maintained, and relations of superiority and subordination are expressed and recognized. If the gods are the stronger ones, and also the givers of good, then they have a claim to gifts. Plato has Socrates define piety as knowledge of sacrificing and praying, and sacrificing as making gifts to the gods, and he counts on unquestioning assent, etc., etc., etc. So, Walter Burkert's Greek Religion, and the second book accompanying that is the Greek Myths. And this, particularly, just as a kind of, I may have said this before, it would make a fantastic present. This is a hardback copy, and it kind of sort of opens like this. So you've got bronze end papers, and then fancy opening title pages all in black. It's published by Quercus. That's the contents page. The introduction with that whole kind of frieze across the top. And there are fabulous illustrations throughout. Sometimes like that, double pages. Sometimes not, like that. But there is definitely, whoa, my battery's running low. There is definitely lots of things. So there's, for instance, that to do with Jason and the Argonauts, which Denise was showing the book she's reading for Historathon, which I noticed has that. For Jason and the Argonauts, Apollonius of Rhodes, I think, isn't it? Yeah. And the content of it, yeah. It covers quite a lot of stuff is covered. And I think it's pretty good. Again, for instance, I reread earlier the Hermes section, and on its own, it's sort of kind of there's this whole thing about how you're sort of kind of like English literature or something, interpreting these myths or trying to understand why these myths are the way they are. Do they really have anything to do with humanity? Well, that's a sort of kind of initial kind of approach that we all might make, because otherwise they're just fabulous, fantabulous stories of utterly unlikely, unreal, and bizarre events. Naturally enough, because of course all these gods and such like. The one about Hermes is quite funny. So Hermes, as a very small child, because he's a bit of a god, he does some remarkable things, like stealing some cattle. And Apollo finds out about this, and he's not very pleased about it, and he follows him back home and confronts him, and he does own up to being rather naughty. But in response to that, Hermes gives Apollo his lyre, but in return, Apollo makes a thing for Hermes. That's that special godlike staff that Hermes is seen with. Yeah. So, in other words, we get all this sort of derivation and all this origins. But what it all adds up to in the real human world at the time in Greece is a different matter. And, well, with any luck, some of this stuff will be covered. Unfortunately, I haven't got that far. I haven't actually read it all. I've only read, again, 60 or 70 pages. But anyway, I think it's pretty good. So I'm looking forward to getting an understanding of where all these gods and these myths play into actual, real Greek human culture of the day, and beyond, probably. So there we are. The last book that I wanted to talk about was this. That's a follow-up book to the Essential Book of Druidry. And this one, as I understand it, there's a Carl Gom has done a book about Druidry, which again is also fairly kind of, well, I don't know, actually, I don't really know. But apparently this one might be kind of a step up from that. It kind of gets a bit more, I don't know, it takes it a little bit further. But the one unmistakable, plain fact of the matter about this book is the writing. Maybe it's something that is rather almost stereotypical, that the writing for a book can be beautiful. It's beautiful writing and so on and so forth. But in this book, from my point of view, it really is. You know, it really is kind of beautiful writing book. So even if you're not interested in anything to do with Druidry, but like a good bit of human prose, shall we say? Living Druidry by Emma Restel Orr. Absolutely amazing book. So that's my little group of books that I'm going to be having a crack at January. And with any luck, I'll be moving on to Roman stuff. Yeah, my battery did finally die, but yeah, good luck with reading for January and Q1 for Historical 2026 and anything else. And well, bye for now.